Yotsuya is a loser who got bored of his life. However, he is sent to another world where he can level up and clap anyone he wants. Someday, a boy walks alone while everyone else walks in groups. He doesn't talk to anyone on the way to school or in class, while the others chat and laugh. The teacher calls out names and notices Hakozaki Kosoi is absent again. Her friends mention it's the third time in 2 weeks and assume she's sick. Another student interrupts to share Shinomiya's news. The unpopular boy Nakata asked Shindo-san out. She's the popular girl chosen to model for Petite Limon. The boy ignores all the conversations and leaves without speaking to anyone. He isn't hated, he just prefers to be alone. He can smile and feel excited, but only at home with his games, not around people. His name is Yotsuya. He's the only one who hasn't turned in the future. Plans form the school requires. He doesn't care about school at all. His teacher says he's a good runner with potential for a sports school, but Yotsuya just wants to go home and play. The teacher warns him that not being able to make friends will affect him later and gives him 1 extra day to submit the form. After class, Yotsuya notices 2 girls staying behind, Shindo-san and Hakozaki Kosoi. He finds it strange they're together. It's his turn to clean the board and close the room, but when he turns to tell them to leave, they're gone. Suddenly, the board fills with flower drawings and a sketch of 3 people. Yotsuya trembles as he suddenly sees himself falling from the sky into another world. Different land, weather, and scenery, landing in a river or small lake. Before he can react, a multi-armed monster appears and he escapes to the shore. 2 girls appear, Shindo-san, whom he recognizes and likes like everyone else, and Hakozaki Kosoi. Yotsuya stands up, still shaking. Shindo tells him not to panic when someone with half a face appears and that he should listen. A creature with half a face suddenly appears. It introduces itself as the Game Master. Yotsuya is terrified and confused, not knowing where he is or why he's here. The creature tells them they must complete a major task requested by a village within 14 days. Yotsuya doesn't calm down until Shindo kicks him to pay attention. From the card the Game Master shows, the 2 girls have already completed 2 tasks. One of the rules is that each completed task adds a new member to their group, and now Yotsuya has been chosen. For every task they complete, they earn rewards that he can ask the girls about later. Shindo-san is a wind witch. Hakozaki Kosoi is a sword fighter, and the girls hope the new boy will get an important combat role. Instead, the Wheel of Fortune assigns him the role of a peasant. Yotsuya is stunned, and both girls immediately lose hope of completing the mission with a peasant on their team. Witch, fighter, peasant. Yotsuya asks how they entered this world. Shindo explains she was the first. After completing her first mission, she returned to their world, where the Game Master asked her to complete another one. She befriended Hakozaki, and when Hakozaki completed her mission, she was suddenly pulled into the game world and met Shindo again for her second task. Then the game chose Yotsuya, and the girls waited until he was assigned to their class and stayed alone with him, which triggered his arrival. The team gathers to review their abilities, weapons, and the basics of summoning gear. Shindo and Hakozaki explain the recording points. When touched, they show scenes from the past. Yotsuya tries one and sees Hakozaki's first day. She tries to hide the fact that she was terrified at first. Shindo also admits she spent her entire first day in hiding until she accepted the reality of the world and completed her mission. Yotsuya learns that completing the mission will send them home. This should motivate him, but he can only think of the people and classrooms he hates, making him feel trapped again. Ogre-like monsters appear. Yotsuya charges at them, not realizing that his peasant class limits his abilities. His game-issued scythe breaks on the first hit, and the ogre kills him. Technically he dies, but he revives after 30 seconds. He tries to rely on the girls. The low-level wind witch can only send a weak gust mixed with dust, and the fighter panics, throws her sword, and falls shaking. Yotsuya tries to pick up her sword, but the game only allows the assigned user to wield it. A frightened girl with a sword and a brave boy with a broken scythe. An unfair system. Yotsuya realizes it doesn't matter how many times he dies. If weakening the ogre requires being killed repeatedly, he'll do it. His plan works, and he defeats the ogre. He's impressed the girls cleared the first 2 missions, but they tell him not to be. They survived only by hiding. As long as one member stayed alive, the mission was guaranteed. Now the difficulty is higher. If all of them die, they die for real. They finish their first day, build a fire, and camp. Shindo suggests visiting the nearby village the next day. The village doesn't appear on Yotsuya's map because only areas discovered by the player show up. His axe and scythe will take 5 days to regenerate. The girls sleep while Yotsuya takes the first night watch. While fighting ogres to raise his level, he hears Hakozaki scream. He runs back to find the area burning and a huge monster chasing them. He tries to save her, but she's already dead. He looks for Shindo, but the monster has eaten her too. Only Yotsuya remains alive, and one hit from the monster will end him permanently. With nothing but a wooden stick, he grabs Hakozaki's partly restored body and runs runs, calling out to Shindo that he'll meet her in the village. Her missing arm terrifies him. If it hasn't regenerated, what about Shindo, who was fully eaten? They reach the village. The villagers and children greet them warmly, calling them heroes, and lead them to the village elder. The elder asks them to defeat a monster threatening the village. The troll, the same creature they just escaped from. Yotsuya despairs. He's a peasant with limited abilities. Hakozaki, barely recovered and terrified of small ogres, can't face a massive fire-breathing monster. He tells her to stay in the village while he wanders to gain levels. He reaches a real turning point. He left a world he hated for its forced social life and landed in one that, despite its dangers, feels like freedom. Here he can rely on himself. Even dying repeatedly feels less painful than returning to Tokyo's pressures. Now, with no usable weapons and a village calling him a hero, he must face the monster that killed Hakozaki. Meanwhile, Shindo, wherever she is, may be watching him with fear and helplessness. As Yotsuya searches for a way to defeat the monster and bring Shindo-san back, he remembers a peaceful day in an open, quiet world, exactly the kind of place he prefers. The team rests by a small stream, chatting like normal students. Shindo asks if he submitted his future plans, then says she wants to join the Faculty of Science and Technology. Hakozaki wants to study pharmacy. Yotsuya is annoyed. He finds those paths boring and unimportant. When night comes, he leaves to level up by killing small ghouls. Anything stronger could eat him at his low rank. On the way, he overhears past conversations. Shindo actually wanted him to join the game, but because he sneezed at the wrong moment, she wasn't able to finish saying which. Yotsuya she meant, either him or the soccer player in their class. Either way, he now lives with two girls, and in his mind, one of them will eventually like him. He sees it as a 50% chance Shindo meant him. As he looks for ghouls, he passes a small village near the forest. The quiet scenery reminds him of his childhood in a simple town, playing with friends, exploring nature, and building hideouts before being dragged into a noisy, crowded city. The nostalgia is warm but short-lived. A game notification interrupts him. Hakozaki is dead. She hasn't revived, which means she was eaten. He runs to the village, realizing the elder who assigned them the troll mission is now in danger, and with the team gone, he's the only one left and barely capable. While thinking about what to do, he sees a recording. Hakozaki is practicing with her sword. A village child asks about it, and she explains that in the real world she's sick, something she never wanted, and feels guilty for burdening her parents with medical costs. She can't move freely because of her illness. In the game, where her sickness doesn't matter, she enjoys being able to act normally. She wasn't a coward, she simply wasn't used to physical activity. Here, her courage showed, and she tried her best until she was eaten. Her final words were her calling out for Yotsuya. He swears he won't let her die now or in the past. A memory flashes, him protecting childhood friends from a monster while playing in the forest. Determined, he continues forward until he faces an ogre. If he kills it, his rank will rise. At the last moment, he points his wooden stick and kills it, freezing time and receiving a notification. His power increases, and he's allowed to change his role. He appears before the game master and hopes for a role with a real weapon. Instead, he becomes a cook. A cook doesn't get a sword, but does get a knife, and the unique skill to know the internal structure of monsters. Hakozaki and Shindo emerge from inside the troll with the blood pouring out of the wound he made, reviving in time. They thank him for saving them, and notice his outfit has changed to a cook's uniform. The team gathers to plan. Yotsuya explains how to dodge the troll's attacks and shows them its weak points. The plan is to avoid its jumps until it tires, then attack. It doesn't work. They die less often but still keep dying. As an experienced gamer, Yotsuya comes up with a new idea. The troll already has a hole in its stomach. He sacrifices himself, enters the creature from the wound, and attacks it from inside, knowing it will kill him. This slows the troll long enough for Shindo, as a wind witch, to create a wave of wind inside its body, blasting its internal organs outward like a storm spinning inside its torso. The troll dies. The game master appears and lets Yotsuya ask one question before sending them back to their world. He asks what happens after completing all 10 missions. The game master shows a vision of Tokyo being attacked by a strange monster, but before Yotsuya can see more, the video cuts off. They return to real life. Time hasn't moved at all, even though they spent hours inside the game. Shindo tells him the next mission will come in 2 weeks. She asks him to escort Hakozaki home and leaves. This is Yotsuya's first time walking a girl home. Yes, he gets nervous and talks too much, unsure whether she asked because he wasn't the Yotsuya Shindo meant, or because she knows Hakozaki is sick and wanted him to accompany her, or because Shindo, now a third year, realizes the next mission is her last and wants the others to bond. He's overwhelmed thinking about their future after 10 missions and the vision of Tokyo's destruction if they fail. The weight of what awaits them grows heavier, and Yotsuya is left with more questions about their fate and the fate of the city he hates so much. The team begins their first mission together. While walking, they find a recording point showing footage from a mission Yotsuya wasn't part of yet. The clip makes him hope he was the Yotsuya Shindo meant earlier. Shindo quickly tries to distract them, embarrassed by what the footage reveals in front of her classmates. Shindo checks on Hakozaki and asks what happened the day she walked home with Yotsuya. Hakozaki tells her about the strange things he said. Shindo laughs and asks one of of her friends about the Yotsuya she knew in elementary school, even though he only joined in 6th grade. Her friend wonders why Shindo is curious about that loner, but Shindo says she just wanted to check on him, since she hardly talked to him before. Yotsuya isn't a runner for nothing. He really runs every night. He hates the city and every crowded corner he passes. His feet ache from the hard cement. He'd rather be running in the mountains. The game master appears to give him his next real-world mission. Approach a girl. For an introverted boy whose first attempt at talking to a girl went poorly even after saving her life, this is torture. Now he must win over a girl who doesn't even know him. The mission leads him to a school he's unfamiliar with, and then to the 2nd floor where he learns the target is currently inside the girl's bathroom, making the situation even worse. He enters and sees 4 girls, clearly bullying one of them. Yotsuya asks which girl he's supposed to approach, and the game master confirms it's the bullied one. Yotsuya, who normally wouldn't interfere, starts thinking like a gamer. His solution is simple: destroy all their phones, which were stuck to the floor recording an indecent video. After smashing their devices, he feels like he's won the bullied girl's heart, his first girlfriend in his mind. He walks the girl afterward. She, like him, prefers solitude and is nervous around him. When he asks why the bullying happened, she explains she once said something on a live stream that she shouldn't have, hinting she wanted to break up a friendship. Even without naming names, her words triggered revenge. She starts crying. Before Tokitari Yoka leaves, she tells him about an app where guys present themselves in ways that attract girls and suggests he do the same. Then she runs off, leaving Yotsuya feeling like he wasted his time on someone worse than the otaku girls he dislikes. Suddenly, Yotsuya, Shindo, and Hakozaki are pulled back into the game. The new mission has already begun, and Tokitati is now their 4th member. The game master assigns Tokitati her role, a heat mage. He explains the rules. Mage weapons are made of amber. Each carries a specific magical charge. Spells consume mana based on their strength, and each item has its own mana counter. Difficulty has increased. Respawn time is now 40 seconds instead of 30. The mission is to traverse 5% of the map and deliver an unknown package to Radodobo within 40 days. They start and consider splitting up to cover more ground, since only 5% of the map is unlocked. Shindo chooses to stay with Tokitari until she adapts. As they walk, Tokitari admits she tried to reconcile with the girls who bullied her. She hates bullying and refuses to let it slide, even if it ruins her friendships. She says those girls were never real friends, and she even chose to protect them at the cost of Yotsuya's reputation, telling them he tried to plant cameras, assuming she'd never see him again. She expected Shindo to despise her, but Shindo understands she was trapped in her situation, not siding against Yotsuya on purpose. As the first day ends, they realize they haven't progressed far. Suddenly, a giant centipede appears and fires a shot from its tail that eats their heads. It kills Yotsuya and Shindo instantly. Hakozaki and Tokitari, hiding, try to fight. Tokitari fulfills her childhood dream of being a witch, but at level 1, her wand can only heat a 20 cm area. She dies too. Yotsuya respawns and looks for a weak point. He doesn't see any openings except a blind spot where he can cut its legs with his knife. After removing all its legs and immobilizing it, he uses Hakozaki's sword indirectly by guiding her hands. The plan works. They kill the creature. Once again, Yotsuya shows surprising skill and creativity that doesn't match his quiet personality. After a long day of marching and fighting, the team rests. Shindo falls asleep and remembers her childhood, being bullied by a boy, hitting him, then isolating herself. A girl approached her, listened, and asked why she hit him. That girl, Sayuri Onachan, said Shindo's violence would cost her friendships, but Shindo didn't care. Sayuri offered to be her friend anyway. Then Shindo remembers Sayuri's funeral. Sayuri's father spoke with a cold, almost expressionless face, saying her deformed face made her death expected, as casually as if describing the weather. Her mother, carrying her daughter's coffin, told Shindo to preserve her beauty, a shallow remark that sounded more like a curse than advice. Shindo wakes up and sees Yotsuya exercising nearby. He notices her tears and asks what's wrong. She tells him that just as he assumed she never cries and always acts like a queen, she assumed he never noticed anyone around him. And then she suddenly asks him for help. Shindo wakes up with the painful memory of her friend Sayuri, who committed suicide because she had no one to turn to when she was bullied. When Shindo entered school, she reached the age where bullying began, especially encouraged by the principal and teachers who disliked her family because her father and brothers caused trouble. People who can't confront the real source of their anger often take it out on easier targets, and she became one of them. But unlike Sayuri, Shindo had friends who supported her, and because of that support, she now stops bullying wherever she goes. However, the game reminds her that this world can end instantly, and that dying here means dying in real life. She is terrified of losing her friends again and asks Yotsuya to help her and stay by her side to protect her. The team continues their mission and returns to the village they saved earlier, but it now looks deserted. A villager riding a creature similar to a Raptor X passes by. Hakozaki misses the innocent boy who once asked her why she was waving her sword and hopes he's okay. She asks the villager about him, and the villager says the boy has been alone for 5 years. Yatsuya asks about Rado Dobo. The villager shows them a map and points to a village on the far end of the world, a distance of 30 days on horseback and 3 times that on foot. The mission seems impossible, but the game clearly prepared something for them. The villager mentions a martial arts competition in a nearby village with a prize of 3 horses. Yatsuya realizes the main goal is not reaching Rado Dobo immediately, but winning the competition. They still have time to level up by hunting small ogres. Something moves in the bushes. A group of bandits spots them. Yotsuya wounds one of them in self-defense, but the game deducts an experience point because harming humans is considered a penalty. They gain nothing by fighting them, so they run. The bandits retreat but manage to kidnap Shindo. Hakozaki and Tokitati want to rescue her immediately, but Yotsuya knows the mission timer won't stop. If they waste time saving her now, they might survive in the game but die in the real world when the mission fails. Completing the mission on time is the only way to protect her in real life. The girls dislike his reasoning, so he suggests splitting up. They rescue Shindo, and he goes alone to the competition. Yotsuya travels alone as he prefers. As he predicted, the girls are kidnapped as soon as they reach the village. He continues killing ghouls to raise his rank and finally earns another class change. He becomes a creature magician, gaining the ability to alter cell reaction speeds with his touch, allowing him to enhance healing or increase pain. He also gains persuasion magic, which can make his words intimidating, convincing, or commanding. Yotsuya arrives at the village determined to win the competition and earn the horses. While he fights for them, the girls insult him and accuse him of abandoning them, except for Hakozaki, who believes in him and hopes he's safe. The competition begins, but Yotsuya's skills aren't enough, and he loses. He dies, respawns, and meets the fighter who defeated him, a knight named Kaha Veal. He tries to negotiate for the horses. She says she can trade 1 horse if he helps her defeat 3 large trolls, but finding 3 in 3 days is nearly impossible. Yotsuya suggests helping her fight the bandits instead. She agrees and takes him to her commander, who offers 1 horse as a reward. Yotsuya considers taking the horse and completing the mission alone, but instead he convinces the knight and her soldiers to attack the bandit camp. Kahaville trains him to improve his swordsmanship. When the battle begins, the army seems to have the advantage until the bandits release a berserker, a man driven insane by consuming too much enchanted meat, now a massive monster with incredible strength and a powerful one-handed sword. Haha draws her special blade, the reincarnation, crafted by her father when she became a knight. The troops cheer, believing she can stand against the berserker, but Yotsuya knows her stamina is no match for the creature. When her sword is knocked away, Yotsuya steps in and blocks the blow with his knife. He uses his persuasion magic to distract the monster by convincing him someone is behind him, but his attack does no damage. The monster kills him instantly. Kaha regains her strength and uses the reincarnation to cut the berserker in half. Yotsuya revives and they defeat the rest of the bandits with his help. He avoided losing experience points by not attacking humans directly and successfully used both his persuasion magic and strategy to turn the battle. He enters the dungeon and finds his teammates. The good news is that he saved them. The bad news is they have only 1 horse, and a wagon pulled by 1 horse can carry at most 2 people. Kahaville offers to escort them to Rado Dobo with a few of her guards if they give her the horse upon arrival. After a ceremony honoring them, they ride together in the carriage, heading toward their next objective, and the knight offers to help improve their swordsmanship along the way. While they are traveling, Hakozaki falls asleep and sinks into sadness about herself and her illness, the same illness that always kept her from playing with her classmates. Even so, she worked hard in class to chase her dream of entering the College of Pharmacy and inventing a cure for the disease that affects both her and her mother, despite the high costs of that university. Her dream keeps her going. In the game, however, she feels torn. Her character can move freely without being limited by illness, but the game forces her to rely on fighting and bloodshed to survive, something she cannot handle. She blames herself for more than she can bear. She wants to protect people in the real world and the game world, but she feels weak, like she can't even protect herself. The scene with the blood of the bandit who trapped them still haunts her, making her lose her appetite. At sunset, they set up camp to rest the horses they brought from the town. Yotsuya cooks for everyone using his chef abilities. He seems casual and helpful, but Tokitati scolds him, convinced he only wants more experience points. Knight Kahaville arrives and reminds them of training time, which was her condition for escorting them. Yotsuya agrees because they are heroes in the game. As long as 1 teammate stays alive, anyone who dies simply revives, giving the knight freedom to practice her sword techniques with live targets. When it is Hakozaki's turn to train, she breaks down. Her mental state can't handle the brutality of the game world. Even though the enemies are virtual, she can't watch anything die in front of her. She cries and hides in her tent. One of the commander's soldiers later goes to gather firewood but is attacked and slightly injured injured by a weak ogre. Kohaville scolds him for calling himself a follower of the strongest knight when he can't handle a level 1 ogre. Yotsuya uses his magic to speed up the healing process. Tokitati arrives and complains that he is just trying to gain more points while the rest of them have stayed at the same level. He tells her not to complain to him about the game's unfair system just because she hasn't found a way to benefit from it. The next day, Hakozaki gathers her courage and asks Kaha to train her seriously to raise her experience points. She is still far from being able to handle a sword, but she is determined. During training, a scout reports a nearby village of ogres. Yotsuya wants to fight them to increase his points, which annoys Tokitati, especially after he gained so many points through cooking and healing. They all go to fight the ogres. Hakozaki faces one alone. Even with her improved stats, she is psychologically unable to point the sword at anyone. A ghoul jumps at her and she reflexively thrusts her sword, killing it. Her tears and apologies come faster than the blood from the ogre. Her guilt overwhelms her, but she tries to remember her dream of protecting everyone and finishing the game so she can return home and chase her goal. Later on the road, they encounter kingdom soldiers and civilians, including children, who are being attacked by 3 monsters. Hakozaki wants to save them. Yotsuya refuses at first to avoid wasting mission time, but when he sees how strongly she wants to help, he convinces the others to split up. One group continues toward their destination, while he and Hakozaki go to save the civilians. Using his cook abilities, Yotsuya analyzes the monsters and identifies them as kobold, with one being stronger than the others. They try to fight, but the monsters overpower them easily and attack both of them at once. Persuasion magic fails because the monsters do not understand human language. They are both killed. Hakozaki revives seconds before Yotsuya and understands what she must do. If she always needs protection, she will remain a burden. She realizes she must contribute. The monster approaches her, seeing her as easy prey. At the last second, she summons a long sword she finally has enough experience to wield. Without even swinging it, she simply holds it forward, letting the creature impale itself. She kills it while raising her score at the same time. Hakozaki has finally changed. Yotsuya heals the injured survivors and explains that they can refill their mana by absorbing magic from monster blood. He learned this when Kaha mentioned the berserker grew powerful by eating enchanted meat, so he experimented with drawing magic from blood without losing control. The idea worked. After the rescued group thanks them, Yotsuya asks where they are going. One soldier explains that they are from the kingdom of Duke and are transporting the civilians to Rado Dobo by order of the king to be executed for practicing a forbidden religion. During the conversation, he mentions something important. The home of those who follow that religion is Rado Dobo. Yotsuya is unsure what to do. Are these children the baggage they must deliver for the mission? Should they protect them? Will saving them break the mission or fulfill it? And does letting humans die count as harming them in the game system? The team faces a moral dilemma. They wonder if the mission allows them to sacrifice innocent children. They don't know if the game will punish them or reward them for choosing compassion. Hakozaki looks at the children with determination, having overcome her fear of fighting. To her, this situation feels like a true test of her growth. Yotsuya tries to balance completing the mission with the human instinct to protect innocent lives. Hahaville asks a soldier who appears to be an infantryman and knight whether he is willing to execute the prisoners outside his own territory, since Rado Dobo is not part of the Duke Kingdom ruled by Kamilto-san. The soldier, who is the leader of that division, is annoyed by how the knight addresses him. He asks for her identity, and she tells him she is a knight from Courtenille. She explains that her country may be smaller than Duke, but at least its strongest officers were not easily killed by kobold. She looks down on a kingdom that knows nothing except war. Tension rises, and a fight is about to break out, but Shindo steps in to calm them. Yotsuya asks the team to gather and talk. He tells them their main mission is to deliver something to Rado Dobo, and that something, could be the prisoners being taken for execution. This means they must accompany the Duke soldiers and help them complete the mission, even if it harms their game level, because hurting humans lowers their score. He believes the future people watching them are judging their decisions to determine something based on their reactions and whether they will participate in this execution. They all agree that killing the Duke soldiers might win Courtenille's favor, but Courtenille is also a dictatorship and could turn on them at any time. Tokitati suggests escorting the children and civilians with the Duke soldiers to Rado Dobo and observing the situation before acting. They all travel together. Yotsuya sits in the carriage trying to heal the sick child with his magic. Healing a child takes far more mana than adults, and his mana is limited despite everything he's done. After a long day of traveling through the barren desert, they stop to set up camp. Yotsuya asks Kamilto to bring him the religious envoy Fosville, the man who hoped that at least this child would survive even if everyone else died. Yotsuya begins to understand the purpose of the mission. He asks why the Duke Kingdom despises this religion. Fosville explains the reason for the sectarian conflict. Half the kingdom worships only the king, while the other half worships both God and the king. This split turned the country against itself until it burned to ashes. Although the kingdom is a dictatorship, it developed theocratic behavior because the conflict was about religion rather than politics. Yotsuya then asks Kamilto why they must travel all the way to Rado Dobo to execute them. Kamilto Camilto explains that the religion originated in Rado Dobo, and the king wants them killed in front of their hometown to prevent the religion from spreading. The king also believes the only way to compensate the families who lost men in the war is to enslave neighboring countries, shed blood, and give every family a slave. Camilto says the king does what is best for his people, and because he himself survived homelessness, he doesn't care if others lose their families or children as long as the king's goals succeed. Tokitari becomes furious and insults both him and his king. Camilto is angered, but Yotsuya calms him down. Camilto then offers an alternative route through the mountain. The ancient transportation mechanism on the other side was built thousands of years ago but still works. They enter the mountain, and he tells them to continue forward while he activates the mechanism and meets them later. But blinded by his loyalty to his king and hatred of the religion, he traps them inside the mountain and leaves, abandoning even his own soldiers. The team decides to continue through the mountain to save time. After exiting, they discuss what to do about the prisoners, still unsure whether the prisoners are their intended cargo or not. They pass several booby traps. Yotsuya disarms the first one using his abilities, knowing exactly which pillar and direction to move. At the second trap, he fails and falls into total darkness inside a stone room. Shindo, believing he may not return in time to complete the mission, hears his voice telling them to continue ahead. He will catch up. He uses his knife to carve footholds in the wall and climbs back up. The girls begin to regret not valuing him like Hakozaki does, but they continue forward anyway. Using Hakozaki's math skills and analyzing the barrier that eliminated Yotsuya, they successfully navigate through it and open the next door. Inside, they see Gargoyle, a man-made creature preserved through a vacuum mummification method. This method allows the creature to move again even after 1,000 years by re-injecting fluid into its body when needed. Yotsuya begins alone, exhausted and nearly hopeless, hearing a faint voice in his mind telling him to give up. But the thought of catching up with his team pushes him forward. He forces himself to carve footholds into the solid wall with his knife. Every failed attempt and painful fall only strengthens his determination. His body becomes covered with bruises and cuts, and he is nearly paralyzed from fatigue, yet his eyes hold a focused determination. Eventually, he manages to place one foot on a tiny ledge, then another, slowly climbing higher. The ascent is slow and painful, but every step is a victory. When he finally climbs out, he looks like someone who returned from death, but his expression shows a new, hardened strength. The repeated falls sharpened him rather than breaking him, and he now carries a powerful, intimidating energy that comes from surviving despair. He walks through the dark hallways, stepping over the bodies of Duke soldiers who once traveled with him. He silently acknowledges them and moves forward until he reaches a checkpoint. Realizing that his team feels the same way he does, they all want to defeat Camilto and make him pay. Meanwhile, the girls face the Gargoyle without Yotsuya. Hahavil, their strongest fighter, confronts the monster alone. Their goal is to retrieve the key hanging on its arm, and the others stand behind her. But the creature pierces her with a fatal strike, and Kaha falls into the water surrounding the arena. Shindo is now alone against the monster and is about to be stabbed. She steps back in fear and unknowingly kills a dying bat under her foot, granting her just enough experience to raise her level. Time stops, and the game master appears to spin the roll wheel. Shindo changes from witch to sword fighter, now at level 10, while still keeping her witch abilities. When time resumes, she attacks the gargoyle, but its skin is too thick and her strike barely leaves a mark. The monster retaliates and injures her arm. She remembers Kaha's training about striking vital points, especially near the heart. She leaps at the monster, but it is faster and cuts off the arm holding her sword. Even so, she refuses to stop. She climbs onto its back, grabs her severed arm and the sword, and drives the blade into its heart, killing it. Far below in the darkness, Yotsuya runs toward them. The distance is long, but the walk in the dark gave him clarity about everyone's role. Jindo chose to support those who suffer from bullying. Hakozaki chose to protect people and uphold the right principles. Yotsuya realizes he must accept the role the game intended for him from the start. He must be the leader. The moment Shindo kills the gargoyle, Yotsuya arrives. He sees Kahaville unconscious in the water and, instead of hesitating like before, jumps in immediately to save her. Hakozaki is proud to see him act without delay. He drains the enchanted blood tubes from the gargoyle to refill his mana, then uses healing magic on Keiha until he collapses from exhaustion. She wakes before he does. When she realizes what he did, she kisses him, surprising the other girls who react with jealousy. When she asks if any of them want him, Shindo denies it. As Yotsuya remains unconscious, the girls ask Kaha why she likes him. She says she sees herself in him. She is trying to match the skill of her knight family in Cortoniel, where her relatives are ranked at the top while she is considered average. Yotsuya also started as a nobody with only a machete and worked his way up to becoming the leader. That similarity draws her to him. Yotsuya then wakes up suddenly. The first thought he expresses is about the nature of their mission. He wonders if the entire journey might have been unnecessary. Shindo's first mission was simply kill an ogre without saying which kind. pair. Her second mission was find 2 settlements without specifying which ones. The third was to fulfill the village elder's request, again with no clear details. He begins to think the lack of specific instructions applies to the luggage as well. Baggage could be anything valuable, not only prisoners, but he cannot confirm that idea without evidence. As team leader, he decides they must split into 2 groups to test both possibilities. Yotsuya decides to split the team. The first group will rescue the prisoners, and the second will search for transportation heading toward Rado Dobo. He also decides that he and Shindo should not be paired together. Shindo, Hakozaki, and one of Kahaville's soldiers, Private Makwa, take a horse and carriage to look for any carriage heading toward Rado Dobo. Yatsuya, Tokitati, Yoka, and Kahaville take another carriage with 2 horses to track down the Duke's soldiers. Shindo's team stays on the main road, maximizing their chances of finding a village, settlement, or merchant heading toward Rado Dobo. Their goal is to join anyone who can transport them. Meanwhile, Yotsuya's team follows his plan. Since Kamilto thinks he successfully trapped them in the mountain tunnel, Yotsuya wants to use this to catch the soldiers off guard. Kahaville then explains what worries her. She saw Kamilto send a letter to his kingdom. She doesn't know whether it was a routine report or a message explaining that he trapped the heroes and a Courtenay squad. If the Duke Kingdom learns that the heroes in Kahaville are still alive, they could use it as an excuse to start a war with Courtenay, accusing them of killing Duke's soldiers, something they are trying to avoid. Yotsuya realizes that avoiding war cannot be solved by simply writing a letter explaining that Courtenay is not the enemy. He believes he must convince the Duke's soldiers face to face so they can report the truth themselves. This solution works, but it does not satisfy his desire for revenge. He wants them to feel the same loss, humiliation, and regret he experienced. With a dark smile, he comes up with a new plan. They eventually spot the Duke's soldiers and wait for the right moment to approach. When Kamilto gathers his soldiers, Yotsuya appears. He doesn't want to fight, which forces Kamilto to listen. Yotsuya wraps lies in truth. He tells them all the Courtenay soldiers died in the mountain. He claims the 2 heroines fell into the underground pit. He adds that only he and Tokitati survived. Tokitati plays along and complains about Yotsuya, pretending she is tired of following a converted hero spreading a forbidden religion. Yotsuya tells the soldiers that, as an immortal hero, it would be easy for him to spread these teachings, and people would follow him because he is celebrated. Before they can discuss it, he leaves them until morning. Tokitati secretly enters their camp later and pretends to lead them to Yotsuya's location so they can arrest him. Kamilto senses something odd, but cannot identify the trick. He sends 1 soldier to guard the prisoners while he and others follow Tokitati. On the road, Kamilto orders Tokitati to be killed. They stab her, and she dies in the game. They return to the wagon, only to find Yotsuya standing there with a blood-stained sword and corpses lying everywhere. He burned the guard alive, cut the ropes, and set fire to the horse's tail so it would run away. He took the second horse and escaped with Tokitati once she revived. The truth of Yotsuya's plan becomes clear. He did not kill the prisoners. He helped them escape. He dressed the real guard in prisoner clothes and placed the remaining clothes on hand-sewn dolls with covered faces to look like dead bodies. By setting the horse loose, he tricked the soldiers into chasing the wrong direction while he moved the prisoners safely away. Yotsuya saved the prisoners and ensured that Kamilto believed the soldiers of Courtenay, Kahaville, and the heroines were dead. This prevents conflict between the kingdoms and places the blame entirely on Kamilto, who may now face execution for his actions. It is a complete victory for Yotsuya's plan. After escaping Kamilto's reach, Yotsuya and Tokitati check on the prisoners and the child who regained consciousness. The child thanks them, and they continue their journey. Tokitati, suspicious of Yotsuya's dark side, asks him whether he realizes he gives people the impression that he could be a trustworthy friend or a terrifying enemy. She asks whether he would really burn a human alive from a humanitarian point of view. He answers from the perspective of a player trying to win. He was afraid of losing points for harming a human, but he still did what was necessary to protect his real-life team and avenge the deaths of his friends. After Yotsuya's plan succeeds, Kamilto breaks down. He realizes he failed his king and his mission. He writes a report explaining everything, knowing it will send him to a court-martial for causing such a large failure. He hears a voice telling him he is about to be executed, but the voice is not in his head. It is Kahaville behind him. She came to shame him for everything he did before giving him a humiliating death. She kills the guard beside him and tells Kamilto to draw his sword so he can die as a soldier. Before delivering the final blow, she tells him the prisoners are alive and the one who died in the fire was his own follower. His spirit collapses completely. His last words are that he only wanted to bring peace to the world because his king planted that idea in his mind. Kahaville then cuts his throat with Ryokaiksa to avenge her friends. In the Duke Kingdom, the king sits before a loyal follower kneeling on the ground. They discuss how foolish Kamilto was. He should have returned as soon as he felt hostility from the heroes in his first report. The second report, created because of Yotsuya's deception, convinces the king that his kingdom is now in danger. He fears the heroes may become hostile toward the Duke Kingdom. He orders his demonic-looking subordinate, marked with a tattoo on his forehead, to find a way to eliminate the heroes before they threaten his land. Yotsuya meets with his team. He tells them that even now he is unsure whether his plan will work. Tokitati reminds him they still have a destination and luggage to deliver. Yotsuya admits he still does not know what the luggage is. He proposes trying 3 possibilities. Meanwhile, the second team, Shindo, Hakozaki, Makwa, and another Courtenille soldier continue searching for merchants, settlers, or anyone traveling toward Rado Dobo. They find nothing. Hakozaki then suggests they think differently. Instead of looking for travelers, they should search for a delivery company, since a world like this would logically have one. They continue and finally encounter a carriage belonging to a delivery company going to Rado Dobo. They ask to accompany it. The guard refuses and points his sword at Shindo. She easily snatches his sword away and sarcastically asks why he reacted so aggressively. His attitude immediately changes, and he becomes proud to be escorted by heroes. Shindo mocks how simple the solution turned out to be, and they continue on their way. Meanwhile, Yatsuya's group prepares to move toward Rado Dobo with the prisoners, the rescued child, and 3 crates containing items that might be the mission's luggage. Tokitati is uneasy about the crates and is also concerned about the child's presence, since it reminds her of strange scenarios from the game she plays. She is absorbed in game logic and keeps interpreting everything through that lens, including Yotsuya and Kahavil's interactions. She tries to treat their relationship like a romance simulation game, pushing them together, creating situations to raise affection points, and even suggesting training activities for them. Eventually, she realizes she misunderstood. Kahavil only wanted to thank Yotsuya for helping her avenge her friend, not confess feelings for him. Tokitati becomes embarrassed for imagining things that were never there. The team rests for the night. The next day, both teams regroup and examine the 3 possible luggage items they might need to deliver to complete the mission. The first possibility is the prisoners. They deliver them safely to a church for protection, but these are not the luggage. The second possibility is the Duke soldiers' weapons, clothes, and belongings, as well as the goods delivered by Hakozaki's group. These could be considered cargo, but these are not the luggage either. They inform the Rado Dobo soldiers that these items prove the Duke Kingdom committed atrocities against the new religion and warn them to be cautious. They also suggest bringing witnesses from the church. Only one item remains, the heads. They realize this might be the actual luggage, or perhaps the game master will decide whether their interpretation is correct. Now that both teams are reunited, they must complete the second part of the mission to discover a section of the map themselves. To cover more ground, they decide to split up once again. As Yatsuya makes his way through the mountains after the team splits up to finish the second part of the mission, he thinks about everything they have achieved so far while looking at a breathtaking view of the ocean from the mountain peak during a clear sunset. He takes a short warrior's rest, but the weather suddenly shifts. Snow begins to fall, and Makwa warns the group that the villagers predict a severe snowstorm, especially in the mountains. Kahavil decides to delay leaving Rado Dobo. Whether it is because of the weather or because she wants to say goodbye to Yatsuya one more time, even she isn't sure. While sitting in a cafe with a hot drink, she remembers how she walked to him earlier near the sea to say goodbye, hoping he might say something meaningful to her. Instead, he told her he had a mission to complete. She accepted his answer, wished him well, and left. As she sits in the cafe thinking about him, the storm intensifies, and she hopes he will survive it. Meanwhile, the storm grows stronger on Yotsuya's side of the mountain. The cold becomes dangerous, and he fears hypothermia. He knows that if he dies and revives in these conditions, he could die again immediately, just like Shindo during the troll mission when she could not revive inside the monster. He starts doing anything he can to warm himself up, wearing every piece of clothing from all the roles he has taken, and keeping his body temperature high through constant exercises as he walks. Tokitati complains endlessly about the cold and says this game should have handsome boys like the game she usually plays, so she could at least warm up by leaning on one of them. Hakozaki Kosoi, who originally only cared about returning to the real world to chase her dream, now begins to understand the importance of having a role in the game world too. Her ability to succeed here is tied to her ability to succeed later. She tries to keep moving in the freezing cold, relying on her heavy armor for warmth, but exhaustion eventually overwhelms her. She collapses in the snow and loses consciousness. Shindo pushes forward despite the cold. She hates this game world that took away people she loved, but she draws strength from memories of developing herself, protecting the weak, and relying on her friends. She remembers how she completed the first mission alone, then how she felt relieved when Hakozaki joined her in the second mission, followed by Yatsuya and Tokitati. She knows she is not alone anymore, and she must survive so they all can return home. She forces herself to continue despite the harsh conditions. Yatsuya's training begins to wear him down, but he understands this mission is different. It depends mainly on him and Shindo. The others lack the equipment needed to survive. As long as one of them completes the mission, the entire team will return to life. The cold isn't the only challenge. The game master clearly understands the psychological pressure this mission creates. Emotional strain seems to be part of the challenge. Yotsuya tries to think of a solution. Digging a shelter would waste precious time needed to finish the mission, yet continuing in these conditions risks death. If he dies, Shindo will become the last hope. He refuses refuses to leave everything to her and pushes forward because the end of the mission is near. Suddenly, a huge monster attacks him. He kills it in one strike, but then he sees that the monster had babies with it. It must have gone out in the storm to find food for them. He wonders whether he should feel guilty for leaving the babies to freeze or starve. He reminds himself they are virtual creatures and forces himself to continue. He promises he will not lose sight of his goal, to finish this game and bring everyone back alive so they can continue pursuing their dreams. Then, the ground beneath him collapses. He falls into a hole hidden under the snow, and Yotsuya dies. As Tokitati Yoka hides from the snow in a small stone cave, she thinks back to her childhood and how she admired the meanings of love, friendship, courage, and hope that she saw in her favorite series, Majiha. But as she grew older and entered the real world, she pretended to love her friends only so she could hide behind people stronger than her. She clung to them on the surface and spoke badly about them behind their backs. She wonders if she can ever become like Majiha, a witch of love and hope. Yotsuya revives inside the game and realizes he fell into a place warm enough to keep him alive until he returned. He checks the team's status and finds that Hakozaki is dead and Shindo is still moving, though exhausted. The storm has weakened slightly, but walking is still difficult. Shindo becomes relieved when she sees a village in the distance and heads toward it, but she suddenly hears the ice cracking beneath her. She was walking across a frozen lake whose surface was slowly melting. Her rushed steps cause the ice to break, and she falls into the freezing water and dies. Yotsuya begins navigating the tunnels beneath the snow, but every path he finds is blocked. He turns back each time and searches for another route with determination. Suddenly, he feels the ground shake as a massive earthworm appears. He fears it at first, but it turns out to be harmless. He decides to follow it, hoping it will dig upward and open a path to the surface. He even starts to enjoy its presence and names it Dodo Taro. His relief ends when he finds a second worm behind him. He tries to explain to it that Dodo Taro already ate all the dirt in the tunnel, but the second worm is not after dirt, it is after him. Yotsuya dies inside the worm's stomach and cannot revive. The mission now depends entirely on Tokitati Yoka. She complains that everything has fallen on her and becomes even more frustrated when she learns Yotsuya has died. A smile appears on her face, but for a strange reason. She has been wanting to give up for a long time and was only waiting for an excuse. Since everyone else has already died and no one expects anything from her, she feels relieved. She believes she finally has permission to stop trying and decides to let herself die easily. A character from her favorite childhood show, Purple Majiha, appears in her mind and scolds her for giving up. She reminds Tokitati how many times Pink Majiha was defeated throughout the series and how she always stood back up. The Majiha sisters never surrendered. Tokitati suddenly feels awakened and remembers those moments. With lines from Majiha in her mind and the image of a handsome fantasy hero from her games in front of her imagination, she forces herself back into the mission. She is driven not by noble ideals but by childhood fantasies, yet it works and pushes her forward. On her way, she encounters a large cat ridden by a woman who offers to take her to her destination. Tokitati assumes the woman is a player like them, but she is actually a witch from this world who notices the urgency and uses magic to accelerate them toward Tokitati's goal. With the witch's help, Tokitati successfully completes the mission. Everyone is revived afterward, waiting for the game master. They are surprised that the one who completed the mission is Tokitati, the habitual complainer, who now has a smile on her face because she intends to take advantage of her moment of victory. Before she can speak, the game master appears behind her. Tokitati shocks everyone by asking an unexpectedly intelligent question about parallel universes. She asks whether the world they are in, the game world, is actually virtual or a parallel universe created by branching possibilities. She explains, if someone has two choices, version A in one universe might choose one path while version B in another universe chooses the opposite. Each decision creates new branches and new universes, leading to infinite outcomes. She asks, what happens if version B dies in one universe but survives in another? Or if a choice made by a parent decades earlier creates a universe where their child no longer exists? The game master answers. He explains that they are able to observe parallel universes and travel between them, but only those that share the same wavelength, meaning they must branch from the same origin point. If moment A branches into B and C, and each of those branches into more possibilities, their technology can observe and travel among them as long as they originate from the same source moment. He reveals that the world they are currently in branched away 4.6 billion years ago, forming a version of Earth where an intelligent species similar to humans evolved independently. The strange monsters and creatures they encounter are simply the result of different evolutionary decisions over billions of years. This world is not virtual. It is a real planet that exists in the same position as Earth, but in a parallel universe. He explains that they, the players, are the only virtual beings in this world. Everyone else in that universe is real. That explains why the team can revive after death. The inhabitants cannot. The entire group is shocked. They had believed they were fighting virtual enemies in a highly realistic simulation, but now they understand they have been killing real beings with real emotions. Yotsuya stands in silence, overwhelmed by guilt. He thinks thinks about the cries for help he ignored while rushing to complete objectives. His opponents were not NPCs but real living entities with hopes, fears, and dreams. His victory feels hollow and unbearable. His hands tremble as every memory of his actions returns to him with their full weight. Even after returning to the real world, a heavy shock lingers among them. The Game Master's final revelation keeps echoing in their minds. The world they fought in was not made of code. It was a real parallel reality, a separate version of history that branched from theirs long ago. Yotsuya, the one behind most of their plans, sits alone in his room. His expression is full of regret, his heart still racing. He lifts his head slowly, eyes heavy with sorrow, whispering to himself about the weight of what he has done. Everything they thought they understood about the game in reality has been overturned. He is no longer just a player. He is someone whose actions carried real consequences for living beings in another universe. At school, during a basketball game, Yotsuya displays unexpected skill. Though he usually prefers solitude and only runs alone, he plays with a level of professionalism that surprises everyone. People who have known him for years recall how he almost never talked to anyone. But now he scores a goal, drops the ball, and leaves the court and the entire school without saying a word. Shindo and Hakozaki are shown playing volleyball. Their fitness has improved because of their missions in the game, though Hakozaki's illness still limits her movements. She is far stronger than before. They talk while watching Yotsuya's strange behavior. They understand why he acts this way. The burden he carries must be crushing. On his way home, Yotsuya receives a message from the Game Master asking how he feels about becoming an assassin. He ignores it and continues home, only to find a young girl sitting in his room. He asks whether she is the Game Master or another being from the future. The girl responds with a line only the Game Master would say. He has no right to ask questions unless the team wins the game. Only the last player to join the team is allowed to ask questions at that moment. She asks how he feels after killing a real human. Yotsuya explains that half of him believes they deserved it. They were going to murder innocent believers of another religion, mutilate them, deceive the heroes, and try to kill them. In his mind, that made them evil. The other half regrets killing them because he knows they believed they were doing the right thing. The girl presses him again, saying he still hasn't given a real answer. He finally admits that if he had known they were real people, he would not have killed them, and he regrets it. She asks if he wants to add anything. He says no. She stands and tells him it is time to learn about the next person who will be added to the game. We see a man wearing a gold chain and 3 theatrical masks preparing for something. Yotsuya enters a restaurant wearing a hat the girl gave him. He sits across from a man in a black suit and sunglasses. The girl explains that the man is a drug dealer who is about to be killed by someone she wants Yotsuya to approach and bring into the game. She explains that the killers were tricked into thinking they would never get caught. He begins describing the new player, Torikina, 19 years old, accompanied by his younger brother Shugi, 14, who joins him in crime. At the moment the restaurant door opens and 3 people walk in, Yotsuya doesn't know which one is Tori. Kill it. As they move in to kill the drug dealer, Yotsuya steps in and tries to talk them out of it. But they are gangsters, not students, and they attack him. They do not realize they are fighting the team leader with high levels of combat experience. Yotsuya defeats them all with ease. He gets angry because they refuse to listen and calls them idiots for letting themselves be tricked into doing the killing. One of them tries again to kill the drug dealer. Yotsuya stops him. The kid asks why he is protecting a drug dealer. Yotsuya replies that it doesn't matter who the man is, he will not allow murder. Their gang leader enters with a gun and points it at Yotsuya. The girl takes out a glove and asks Yotsuya if he wants it. It is a magic glove that grants persuasion magic like in the game. He immediately takes it and uses persuasion to stop the gang leader from shooting. He punches him and sends him to the ground. As Yotsuya turns around, the gang leader tries to shoot him in the back. Tori stops him, knocks the gun away, and tells him he will never work for him again because he was defeated by a child. He kicks the leader in the face and leaves with his brother. Later, under the night sky, Yotsuya stands with the girl, either a child or the game master. She tells him he prevented a murder and asks how he feels about the idea of killing. He admits he doesn't know, but he now understands what he must do. She assumes he means he has learned the value of human life, but Yotsuya answers in terms of the game. He believes that arresting the 2 brothers would hurt his chances of completing the next mission. When he saved Tokitari earlier, it wasn't out of protection. It was to keep her from having her photos leaked and losing her will to return, which would affect his chances of winning. She gives him another chance to say something meaningful about the value of life. Instead, he says some people deserve to die, such as the blonde boy who came to commit murder. To Yotsuya, he is a worthless person who deserves death. The girl shows clear disappointment. After everything he has been through, he still thinks he can judge the value of others, acting like an anonymous internet user passing judgment on everyone. Yotsuya responds that he knows he is paranoid and full of delusions. He knows he might be wrong, but he still believes he is always right and everyone else is wrong. A part of him understands this belief is evidence of his paranoia, but he doesn't care. As they stand together in the darkness, his final words about the value of humans hang in the cold air. The girl looks at him with a mixture of despair and anticipation, as if watching a dark seed take root in his soul. Yotsuya is now a boy burdened with the responsibility of saving 2 worlds. We leave the city center and move into a poor neighborhood. Walking through alleyways covered in graffiti, we see Tori and his younger brother Shugi living alone with their mother. She has just returned from work, exhausted, asking for water and longing to hug her 2 sons before drinking. Everything she does is for them. Later that night, the mob boss we saw earlier arrives with the 2 boys. He pushes their mother to the ground and dominates the area, telling her that what she paid him doesn't even cover the interest. Tori tries to stand and defend her, but Shugi holds him tightly from behind and cries. The gang boss notices the anger in Tori's eyes and realizes he can use him. He offers the boys a task that will reduce their mother's debt. Refusal isn't an option. The boys go to the restaurant to carry out the job, only to find Yotsuya waiting and stopping them, just as shown at the end of the previous season. We cut to Yotsuya's school near the end of the day. As usual, Yotsuya, who prefers solitude, walks home alone. His teammates, who would have never acknowledged each other without the game, say goodbye and return to their own lives. Yotsuya goes home to play the game he loves. Shindo shows her friends her photo in Petty Lemon magazine and receives compliments. Hakozaki returns home quietly, resembling someone who never leaves the darkness. Each of them wonders if they will return to the game soon. Suddenly, the 4 heroes appear again in the game world, joined by the new member, Tori. He appears in the same spot Yotsuya once did, in the water facing the octopus monster. He escapes from the lake and climbs onto land. The girls notice the accessories he wears, items that only gangsters wear, and the design on the back of his shirt, which makes them uneasy. The game master appears and explains their new mission, Jivan Pavo in Vike Demania. The time limit is 20 days and resurrection now takes 50 seconds. Jindo receives the ability to teleport to any previously visited location. Tori becomes a spear warrior. The team now consists of 2 sword warriors, a heat mage, a spear warrior, and a creature mage. They immediately begin planning. Yotsuya says they should teleport to Court Neil to learn the mission details from their allies there. Shindo explains teleportation in simple terms. Hakozaki doubts Tori will understand, but Tori agrees to go with them anyway. However, he refuses to teleport until Yotsuya proves his power. Yotsuya demonstrates how he used persuasion magic to stop the gang leader from shooting him. When Tori runs toward him, Yotsuya uses persuasion magic to force him onto his knees. A childish fight breaks out between them, but Tori wins, and they proceed with teleportation. Yotsuya suggests seeking out the rider who helped them previously, Kahaville. She may know something about the mission. When they find her, they learn that 15 years have passed in this world since she last saw them. 2 children stand beside her. The team is stunned. The strong knight who once loved battle has now lost her right hand in a war between Courtenil and the Duke Kingdom. After becoming a mother, she discovered that caring for children is harder than any battle, so she retired and devoted herself to raising them. The team respects her choice. Tori introduces himself and explains he has experience with caregiving because he helped his mother give birth to Shugi. He tells them his father was never in his life, and a debt collector tried to force him and his brother into murder to repay their mother's debt, something Yotsuya stopped. He turns to Yotsuya and thanks him deeply, even though earlier he kicked him in retaliation for striking Shugi at the restaurant. Inside, he is grateful that Yotsuya prevented them from shedding blood. The debt collector was arrested and the debt was removed from their mother's shoulders. That night, the team sleeps at Kahaville's home. She asks Yotsuya to accompany her to watch the sunrise from a place she once wished they could visit together. Their farewell in the past was rushed, but she never stopped thinking of him. Now he stands beside her on the castle wall, both of them watching the sunrise. Yotsuya apologizes for being the reason her friend Bimsberg died. She holds his hand and tells him that without the memories she shared with him, she would not have survived the pain of that world. They were young then and very similar, but the difference in time between parallel worlds separated them. She asks if the girls told him what happened when he fainted after using too much magic to heal her. He doesn't know what she means. She explains by repeating what she did. She hugs him tightly and kisses him through tears. She loved him, but she admits it cannot work now. Yotsuya's expression stays unchanged. The girls secretly watch and, thinking it will entertain them, witness this emotional scene. It breaks their hearts. They quietly leave. On their way back, they meet a man named Thickus, who thanks the heroes for saving them from the troll. Hakozaki tears up with joy when she sees the boy she once protected and died for is alive, confirming her belief that her actions mattered. The heroes board a ship headed for Jivan. They are surprised when the captain tells them they are traveling to the island to work as mercenaries. Before he can explain further, they arrive. 2 girls wave to them from the island dock. They introduce themselves as Yana and Oyo, ritual dancers villagers of Vaike Damania. They welcome the mercenaries. This is the first time the heroes are called mercenaries rather than heroes. Yotsuya asks the meaning of Vaike Damania. The girls are annoyed that he doesn't know it is the harvest festival. When he asks about Jivan Pavo, they become even more annoyed. They eventually calm down and lead the heroes to a herd of cow-like creatures. These creatures are the Jivan Pavo. The villagers must offer one Jivan Pavo as a sacrifice for the Vaike Damania harvest festival, but they cannot hold the festival this year because of the ogres. The girls point toward the Kamamal fortress. It was built by their ancestors as an impenetrable stronghold, but ogres and their queen took it over. Before the ogres killed the villagers surrendered. That did not stop the ogres. They do not fight for domination. They fight to devour humans. The villagers now raise the Jivan Pavo as food for the ogres in exchange for their own safety. But the ogres reproduce faster than the Jivan Pavo, meaning that soon there will not be enough beasts to satisfy them. When that day comes, the ogres will return to devour the villagers. This makes the mission more complicated. The heroes must protect the village itself for the mission to succeed. After hearing all this, the traitor spy behind them runs off to inform the ogre queen that the villagers have hired mercenaries to destroy them. After the team learns their mission, they join the mercenaries to prepare. Some of the mercenaries carry swords, while others look like amateurs who only came when they heard about the reward. A man named Kuntelli arrives carrying a sword large enough to show he is a commando fighter. He tells them he has fought ogres many times. The secret to an ogre's strength is its powerful grip. One punch from their long arms can kill. Yotsuya is eager to start training, but Kuntil tells him that with his cooking tools he is not qualified. Only Tori, the spear warrior, and Shindo, the sword fighter, meet the requirements. The others don't have enough experience points even to use a bow. Tokitati is relieved because she didn't want to fight. Hakozaki is upset that she can't help. Yotsuya runs off to raise his rank so he can participate. When he searches for monsters, Oyo and Yana tell him there are no monsters on the island besides the ogres. Their ancestors wiped out everything else. He has no way to fight, so he must either cook or work as a farmer. He chooses farming, remembering that his grandparents were farmers in the real world. As he gathers crops, he notices the fruits are not growing properly. He realizes it's because the soil lacks fertilizer. The girls explain that there are few pavo left, so their dung is scarce. Feeding the ogres also affects crop production. The volcanic soil is poor in organic matter, and algae or shells cannot be used because when mixed with pavo dung, microbes cause mold that kills plants faster. While talking, Yotsuya notices an unusual closeness between Oyo and Yana. They explain that they must remain virgins because they are the last Vaike Damania dancers left. The ogres ate all the other girls in the country, so there is no one to replace them, which forced them into their current relationship. Yotsuya continues improving his farming using magic. He mixes shells and algae with pavo dung, then uses his creature magic to accelerate decomposition and increase the microbes outside the soil so they produce usable fertilizer. His farming succeeds. Meanwhile, the qualified fighters train with the mercenaries. Hakozaki tries to help by preparing food and tending to the trainees. The mercenaries also train peasants, because if they lose the battle, no one will remain to defend the villagers. One villager complains that mercenaries should handle the fighting alone, but Kuntil explains that training them is essential. If the island falls, everyone dies. The peasants are lazy at first, but after realizing the alternative is remaining slaves until they are eaten, they reluctantly continue. During a training session, an ogre suddenly appears from the mountain. The heroes and mercenaries attack, but Shindo cannot land a single hit. The ogre's fingers are like iron clubs. Kintile and his strongest fighters work together to bring it down. Its strength shocks everyone and shows how hard the fight will be against 14 of them. They question why the ogre appeared then, and tension rises. Some suspect a spy among them, someone informing the ogres about the mercenaries. Oyo and Yana urge everyone to calm down and stay united. Amid the shouting, Thanzamir arrives, strikes the ground with his sword, and demands silence. He gives a speech. The villagers' ancestors came 900 years ago and built paradise from barren land. Paradise doesn't appear on its own. Either someone gives it to you or you build it yourself. The villagers' ancestors plowed this land until it became beautiful. He asks why the people of Jivan now care more about money than life, safety, culture, knowledge, pride, and the land they built. Without these five, Jivan is just an empty paradise. His words revive the villagers' spirit, and they return to training. Meanwhile, the spy runs off to inform the ogre queen of their renewed determination. While Yotsuya continues farming, his score finally rises, and the roll change wheel appears. His excitement fades when he receives the blacksmith roll, one of the rare 0.5% rolls. He tries to stay positive. Kathaville told him this island is famous for weapon exports, so being a blacksmith might help him level up and support the team by creating weapons. He goes to the forge run by Oyo's grandfather and begins working non-stop. He studies, works, barely sleeps, and eventually creates a weapon, an axe with a wedge that embeds itself in the target before acting as a normal axe. He names it Wotule. Everyone laughs at the shape and the name until he demonstrates it on a wooden pole. The wedge pierces deeply, and Kantil immediately likes it. Yotsuya says he can produce many because he used a mold casting method. For his teammates who can't fight up close, he makes different weapons. Hakozaki thanks him for giving her a way to help. Tokitati complains because she now has to participate. Yotsuya worries that players might be limited to game-provided weapons, but at least the mercenaries and peasants can use his creations. Hakozaki walks in and notices he hasn't slept in over a day. He tells her that his goal is to help bring back people who can add something meaningful to the real world. He believes she and Shindo have value, while Tokitati and Tori, in his mind, lack potential and can be replaced if they die. Kentil overhears him and challenges his thinking. He asks whether a person's path depends solely on personal choices, or if their environment forces those choices. Yotsuya admits environment matters, but if two people share the same conditions, he believes the one who holds on to strength and goodness deserves to rise. Giving power to someone unworthy can cause more harm than denying it. Hakozaki tells Cantil that Rice once said he was a great commander and that some battles are unwinnable no matter how experienced the leader. Cantil, still carrying guilt for the lives he couldn't save, feels encouraged to not lose the next battle. Everything is finally ready. The map, attack plans, weapon stores, hidden supply spots, and stairs for breaching Komomo Fortress. The second line of peasants has been trained. They only need a chance to strike first. Their preparation is cut short by the screams of villagers. The ogres have attacked the harbor. Smoke rises in the distance, and cries of panic spread across the island. The day before the battle, the friends sit around the campfire sharing memories. Rice tells them about his past. He was once a servant to a nobleman and admired Kentil from afar, hoping to join his unit, but his low level kept him among the reservists. When the country collapsed, he and his friends fled the palace. Soldiers killed 2 of them, bandits killed 2 more, and another close friend, Kanaloni, died from malnutrition. Rice was the only survivor. He talks calmly, surprising the others with how he endured all of that and can still smile. The fight on Javon intensifies. More villagers and mercenaries fall, and even Thanzamir, who wounded an ogre before, now swings his sword as if it barely scratches the monster. Kantile reminds everyone they must not freeze in fear. They attack together, but the gap in power is clear. 3 ogres strike down Tori and Shindo in one hit, leaving Kentil alone against all 3. Just as the ogre is about to kill him, a metal projectile pierces its head. It was fired by the cannon-like weapon Yotsuya crafted using knowledge from the real world. 2 ogres remain, but reloading takes time. Rice buys that time by distracting them and pulling them toward Yotsuya's aim. Pastoring stacks, he manages to land another shot. It doesn't kill them, but it forces them to retreat and gives the team time to regroup. Everyone retreats to the Vake Dam cave to heal the wounded. Kentil, Tori, and Thanzamir gather whoever remains able to fight and redistribute them across defensive positions. Hakozaki and Tokitati stand by the ogre eater weapon, Tokitati's name for it, while Rice and Yotsuya act as bait to pull ogres into its range. 2 ogres appear. Rice and Yotsuya split them up and place them in front of the gun's line of fire. The 2 girls fire and take one down. Tokitati's level rises, triggering a role change from Heat Mage to Hunter. They eliminate every ogre that attacked during the night, but another soon approaches the stronghold. Yotsuya moves to distract it. Rice warns him that he is exhausted, but Yotsuya wants to test the axe he forged. He lands a successful hit, embedding the wedge into the ogre's body, but he lacks the strength to drive it deeper. The ogre crushes him with one strike. The ogres begin throwing stones at the stronghold wall until an opening forms. Rice jumps in despite low stamina, but his sword cannot pierce the ogre. The ogre kills him. Yotsuya revives too late to save him. He rushes in, strikes the ogre through the head with the Watul, killing it, then lures the second ogre into a trap. It looks up and takes a bullet through its head from the ogre eater. The team gathers around Rice in his final moments. His wounds are beyond Yotsuya's healing. Rice jokes weakly that this is what happens when he fights instead of running. They tell him he wasn't weak or cowardly, and that fighting beside Kentel made him a hero. Kentel later hears of his death and grieves. Out of the 5 ogres that attacked the stronghold, all are dead. Only 5 more remain besides the queen. Yotsuya decides to move to the Vike Dam cave to protect the dancers, since the success of the mission depends on presenting the Javan Pavo at the festival. The team debates whether to go directly to the cave or retrieve ammunition first. Before leaving, they bow beside Rice's body. They now fully understand that these are real people making real sacrifices, something Tori still doesn't grasp. Kentel and Shindo discuss why the queen ogre is missing. Shindo believes the queen's target is the ship carrying the children and elderly villagers who cannot fight. They go to check and discover she is right. The ogre queen went after the ship to kill the children in revenge for the villagers killing her own. This creates a moral question. These ogres want food to survive, just as humans do. The villagers originally made a pact to feed them Javan Pavo. But when the ogres multiplied, the villagers knew the Pavo wouldn't be enough, and the ogres would turn back to eating humans. So, the villagers broke the pact and hired mercenaries to kill the ogres' children children first. Humans believe they can dominate the world, relying on their intelligence. Even the ogres know humans are smarter, yet that intelligence never made humans aware of how weak they truly are. The battle between Kantile, Shindo, and the Ogre Queen begins. She is far stronger than her sons. Kantile and Shindo try to land blows, but nothing affects her. When she manages to corner Shindo, Kantile distracts her, forcing her to follow him instead. Shindo uses magic to divert the queen's attention, while Kantile hides among the ruined huts and scattered sword fragments, waiting for a moment to strike from behind. At the main stronghold, 2 more ogres appear and destroy much of the area. After 1 mercenary is killed defending the villagers, the townspeople finally manage to kill 1 ogre with a shot from the Ogre Eater weapon. The second ogre escapes, and Thansamir chases after it. No one knows where it went, now that nearly every mercenary is either wounded or dead, including Rice and Kantile. The heroes themselves cannot use Yotsuya's crafted weapons because the game does not register them as part of their gear. Only the villagers can use them. One villager stays with Shindo and Tokitati to protect the injured as they are moved toward the Vaike Dam Cave. Meanwhile, at Komamo Fortress, the remaining fighters choose to confront the ogres directly rather than wait while wounded. Suddenly, the ground shakes violently. The island's dormant volcano erupts, sending lava and ash across the sky. Before they can react, the sea rises into a massive tsunami, a towering white wall racing toward the island. The Bake Dam Cave begins to collapse from the tremors. As the roof falls, some of the injured cannot escape in time. Yana refuses to leave them and runs back in to help, but the cave collapses on her, leaving Oyo alone. Seeing the lava in the air, the approaching wave, and the destruction sweeping the island, Oyo remembers the ancient song of her ancestors from 800 years ago. The psalm speaks of the volcano as the anger of the mountain god who erupts in rage, and the sea wave as the wrath of the sea god closing his white wall over the island. When the wave rises high enough to block the sun and the white wall turns black, it means the villagers are doomed. Oyo sings this ancestral song as a plea to the gods, reminding them of village life, warm families, farming, cooking, and the simple happiness of the island. During this chaos, the Ogre Queen kills Shindo and prevents her revival by throwing her body into the water. Just when everyone believes the injured and Yana have been lost, they discover that Yana knew of an old tunnel carved by their ancestors for mining, leading to a volcano shelter. She managed to rescue the injured through that route before dying. The survivors come out and face the destruction of the beach homes. Before despair takes over, Yatsuya immediately asks Oyo about weaknesses in the volcano structure. He asks whether there is a flaw in Komamo Fortress that would allow them to collapse it entirely so the ogres fall into the volcano, since he cannot redirect the volcano itself. His idea shocks everyone. He seems more like a demon king than a hero, willing to consider anything to win. Oyo tells him the fortress cannot be destroyed because it is the symbol of the island and survived countless earthquakes. Yatsuya does not argue. He simply turns away, thinking about another angle of attack, showing no fatigue and no hesitation. Oyo asks him how he keeps going when he is ready to sacrifice everything to reach his goal. He replies that once someone understands their goal clearly, they only need to keep taking the next step. The process itself does not matter. If someone realizes they are powerless, then the only option is to change that powerless state. Tori and Oyo do not fully understand, but they know there is no time to stand still. Oyo begins to see that she and Yana failed their role as storytellers. Their ancestors warned against building homes on the beach because of disasters like this. She realizes they ignored those lessons for the sake of expanding and chasing wealth, and now they are paying the price. But she remembers Yotsuya's words, which reignite a sense of resolve in her. Even if the houses fall, they must rebuild stronger ones. Even if the fields are washed away, they must plant again on higher ground. How? The people of Javan have always worked despite hardship. They did not wage wars to take from others. They built their own paradise through slow, steady effort. Their culture was formed through countless rises and falls. They cannot surrender now. As flames rise and ash falls, a dark shape moves. A massive black dragon emerges from the erupting volcano, a living embodiment of destruction. It rises from the fire like the appearance of death itself. Now, the real nightmare begins. Amid the volcanic flames and the flooding seawater, the Ogre Queen sits in the chaos, remembering her painful past, trapped in a cage on an ancient ship with her sons before escaping to Javan. While Yatsuya sees the dragon hovering in the burning sky, he tries to focus on eliminating the ogres first. The only possible battlefield is the castle. He considers 2 approaches. He can attack the ogres on the high-ceilinged second floor, gaining surprise but giving them room to move, or lure them into the low-ceilinged corridor, which limits their movement but increases the risk of being trapped. Yatsuya tries 3 ideas. First, he tries to lure them off the balcony and push them into the volcano, but it fails because the ogres are avoiding falling volcanic debris. Second, he tries using villagers as distractions, but the ogres kill them and even bite off Tori's foot. Yotsuya is nearly eaten too. Then he sees a young female ogre clinging to the back of one of them. He realizes the ogres are protecting a future queen. One female ogre can give birth to 100 ghouls, and only a few of them will be female. If those few each produce more, the population will explode. Yotsuya asks Oyo to speak the only ogre language phrase she knows, a joke she learned from an old book. Her ridiculous sentence distracts the ogres. Tori, injured but able to fight, attacks with his spear. Yotsuya pushes a cart filled with lava at them. Tori kills one ogre, and Yotsuya burns the other with the lava and grabs the ogre child before escaping. Out at sea, the ogre queen reaches the ship carrying the village children. Thanzamir confronts her with his massive sword. She fears him, knowing one hit could kill her, but she only needs one chance to finish him. During the violent rocking of the ship, she leaps at him and disarms him. At the last moment, Shindo returns. She survived because the falling water level allowed her revival. Using part of her armor as a surfboard, she dodges the queen's attacks and fights her again. Back on the island, everyone injured, healthy, and even the blacksmith suddenly becomes weak. Yama notices that something is draining their life force. It is the dragon, feeding on the islanders' energy. Hakozaki stays beside the exhausted blacksmith and helps him raise the injured onto rooftops to escape the advancing lava. Hitati retrieves a metal stake from a dead ogre. Hakozaki loads it into the ogre eater weapon, and the blacksmith helps her fire it. The shot hits the ogre queen on the boat just as she tries to finish Shindo and turn toward Thanzamir. In her final moments, she remembers her family and her motherhood. She drags herself toward the island, but Thanzamir takes his sword, gives her a fatal stab, and desperately tries to stop the ship from sliding into the lava. Meanwhile, Yotsuya, carrying the ogre child, runs toward the lava to lure the ogre father away from the fortress. He throws the child into the lava. The ogre leaps after her, only to find her blood on his hands. She is dead. Yotsuya pushes the father into the volcano. He witnesses something he never expected. The ogre father lifts his dying daughter from the lava and tries to smile for her in their final moments. This image deeply unsettles Yotsuya. He always believed ogres were cursed beings, but the raw parental love he sees now shakes his conviction. A seed of doubt grows in him. Maybe not everything is as black and white as he believed. Maybe even monsters carry something human inside them. As Thanzamir struggles to stop the ship from reaching the lava, he feels the heat closing in. He remembers why he once left the island, the narrow relationships, the lack of curiosity, the refusal of the older generations to learn. He always felt suffocated, believing that beyond the sea, there was a world where he could test his abilities. He became a mercenary, fighting for countries, friends, and family. But now, in the moment of truth, he uses his last strength to save the people he once abandoned. Kuori and Yotsuya return to the island and meet the captain, who has a strange red symbol behind him. Yotsuya continues searching for a way to expel the dragon that is draining the island's life energy. The dragon appears before them, and Tori charges at it, but it instantly drains him and kills him. Yotsuya flees, realizing he must remove the islanders before fighting the dragon, but he first wants to secure the island. He encounters the captain again, lifts him, and runs. But the captain reveals that he isn't the captain. He is Raji, the dragon sorcerer who summoned Darsoid. Yotsuya becomes furious, realizing Raji was also the one who brought the ogres to the island. Raji chants a spell and kills Yotsuya. Tori arrives and dies trying to protect him. Raji knows heroes will revive. He cannot waste time fighting them. The only true way to stop them is to kill the Vaikadam girls. Oyo flees, remembering who Raji truly was. As a child, he learned to walk and speak faster than anyone. He became a celebrated engineer and convinced everyone to build homes on the shoreline. Now, he uses that intelligence for destruction. Before he kills her, Yotsuya revives and saves her. She misunderstands his closeness, thinking he will kiss her, but he instead asks for her help, using creature magic and persuasion to distract Raji. Tori ambushes him from behind but cannot deliver a killing blow. Raji escapes and summons a dragon to ride. He drops a bottle. Tori picks it up and recognizes the strange red color. He realizes it matches the symbol they saw earlier. He takes the group back to examine it. It turns out to be a life energy absorption talisman, one of 6 on the island. To stop the energy drain, all must be erased. They cannot locate them easily until a novice cartographer calculates a method. Using the dragon's position as the circle's center and the first talisman as a radius, he divides the circle into 6 equal parts. Each radius marks a possible talisman spot. The method works. They erase all 6 talismans, and the dragon returns to the volcano. They return to the shoreline and see Thanzamir's body turned into hardened charcoal, trapped between the ship and the lava. His sacrifice saved the village in the end. The heroes complete their mission. The islanders celebrate the Vaikadamania festival. festival and offer the Javan Pavo sacrifice. Oyo and Yana thank the team. Oyo kisses Yatsuya and tells him that if he were from her world, she would retire and marry him. Tokitati wonders how Yotsuya keeps attracting admirers. Shindo says it is because he finally behaves like a real person in the game world, not a loner. Hakozaki adds that it's because he now treats the people of that world as real humans, not NPCs. Raji flies away on his dragon but is suddenly struck and killed mid-flight. It is Vatina-sama, a great sorceress. Raji recognizes her instantly before falling into the water. Kuntile, still alive in the sea, witnesses it, stunned. Raji's story ends at the hands of Vatina-sama, an unexpected and mysterious force. While Yatsuya is out jogging, he notices a girl filming him. She tells him in Japanese that she came because the white girl asked her to. He recognizes her from before. She says he will soon meet the 6th member of their team for the next mission. She introduces herself as Glinda, or Glyn. She's a freelance videographer. When Yotsuya asks if she has ever been in the game world, she says no, but she learned about it because she found 4 people online who all claimed they went to another world and came back. Yotsuya thinks she means his teammates, but she clarifies that these are different people. An American, a French woman, an Egyptian, and a Japanese woman. The Japanese woman is her manager, and he realizes she is the streamer who broadcasts everything live. All 4 described almost the same experiences, even though none of them ever communicated. When Glyn mentions the Japanese girl's nickname, Yotsuya realizes it is Tokitati. He asks about the French girl since he liked the way she looked, but Glyn tells him she died of a heart attack after completing the 4th round. Her last comment said the 5th round was about to begin, which means she must have died because she failed the mission. He asks about the other 3. Glyn says she tried contacting them, but they ignored her. She came today to ask him if she could film him and his group about the topic. Later, Shindo hears Yotsuya's voice outside the game for the first time and laughs at his hometown accent. The others notice it too. She compliments him and says she liked his rewrite of their adventures. At the filming location Glyn chose, Shindo dresses as a fighter. Hakozaki plays a villager, and Yotsuya plays the game master. Shindo performs professionally. Hakozaki acts convincingly, and Yotsuya intentionally downplays his character because he hates being assigned weak roles, but he still pulls off playing a bandit who gets defeated by Shindo. Yotsuya thanks them for coming. Shindo tells him she joined because she wanted to have fun. She gets close to him, tells him to stop being so reserved, and says she liked his accent. She thinks he behaves differently in the real world. Baddies. The game begins. Glyn becomes an axe warrior. Hakozaki is promoted to a sword raider after gaining enough points by killing the ogre queen. Yatsuya's new role becomes novice heat mage. The 5th mission appears with 2 options: reduce the addiction rate of the Rainbow of Goldia to below 3% within 90 days, or stop the destruction of Zagroth within 3 days. Yotsuya wants the longer mission, but before he can choose it, Turi picks the 2nd task, thinking it's easier. Yatsuya becomes furious that Turi chose for everyone. They head to Courtenille to ask Kahaville about Zagroth. On the way, they forget where her house is, but Yatsuya remembers, which makes Shindo tease him about his memory. When they reach the house, they find Kahaville's daughter instead. Her mother is dead. The daughter knows about the heroes from bedtime stories and takes them to her grave, helps them find a carriage to take them halfway to their destination, and says she is happy to help the people her mother loved. Yotsuya feels self-loathing because Kahaville had been proud of their adventures while he was only using her to survive. The carriage drops them in a jungle they cannot pass through. They notice that although Glyn speaks English, they hear her in Japanese, meaning the game automatically translates voices. An ogre appears. Tori rushes in and dies instantly. Yotsuya and Shindo try fighting it, but can't defeat it. They wonder why ghouls are usually weak, but this one is much stronger. Before the ogre kills Tokitati and Hakozaki, who hit immediately, Glyn appears and kills it in 1 hit. Yotsuya checks it with his chef ability and sees it as level D instead of the usual level F. They sense someone hiding nearby and follow the trail to an old cemetery with a small house behind it. Inside is a frightened child. Glyn thinks she'll scare her, so Hakozaki approaches. The child calms down when she recognizes the heroes. They ask why she hid. She says she thought they were from the village. When they ask where the village is, she points to a huge rock formation like Devil's Tower with a settlement on top. Yotsuya tries asking her to guide them, but Glyn answers for her, saying the girl already ran from them when she thought they were villagers, so she definitely won't guide strangers to the village. The girl leaves to gather fruit alone in the forest. They feel sorry for her. Glyn prepares to kill a nearby noise until the child suddenly calls out, "Father!" revealing that the person hiding is her parent. The team hesitates, unsure whether to kill or spare the man with a worm emerging from his head. Yatsuya tells them he once read about a parasite called the wireworm, which infects the brains of living creatures and takes control of them. It can't be killed by cutting or crushing, only by burning it together with its host. The girl panics when she hears the word burning, but Yatsuya explains that her father has been dead ever since the parasite took over. The worm attacks them using her father's body. Glyn tries to cut the worm but can't, so Yatsuya cuts off the entire head and tells Tokitari to burn it before it spreads. The sight triggers one of Glin's childhood memories about her own father, who resembled this man, either a drunk who destroyed himself or someone suffering from a brain illness. When the girl, Jiz P, sees her father burning, she collapses and they carry her home. Yotsuya scolds Hakozaki for failing to hit the parasite with her sword. She says she tried but froze, feeling guilty, and asks how he stayed calm. Quote, Glin defends her, saying that even if the parasite controlled him, he still looked human, and killing something that resembles a human isn't easy for everyone. Yotsuya, already burdened by guilt from burning a man alive earlier, tells Hakozaki to leave the killing to him. She breaks down, saying it's unfair that everyone but her is forced to carry guilt. Glin comforts her, saying corpses depress her too, and that life is full of things she can do. She shouldn't obsess over what she can't. Jiz P decides she will now guide the team and takes them through a mountain passage by boat, leading to a limestone tunnel filled with vampire bats. Tori charges ahead to gain experience by killing them. Jiz P explains why she and her father left the village. Monsters were increasing, the harvest kept shrinking, and the village could no longer support everyone. The village elder began selecting the oldest or least productive people to send out on what he called the Journey of Hope, but villagers secretly called it the Journey of Death. They were sent away to reduce the number of mouths to feed. After her father and the young man who went with him were sent away, her mother became bedridden. Jiz P and her brother didn't know what to do, so she left the village to bring her father back. She eventually found his hut. When she told him she had come to take him home, he refused, saying he couldn't break the rules and feared she would be executed for leaving without permission. She refused to return without him. He told her to stay while he went to speak to the elder. When he didn't return, she assumed he failed and had been executed. The villagers, she thought, would come next to take her for punishment, but instead, he returned with the parasite. Hakozaki asks about the young man who left with him. Jiz P says she hasn't seen him, only hearing from her father that Dan went searching for new Aden and never came back. Tori asks if returning to the village is safe, since she might be executed. Jiz P says she only wants to tell her mother and brother that their father is dead. As they approach the village entrance, Jiz P scouts ahead and warns them to avoid the elder's allies. Shindo questions the mission, saying nothing seems dangerous enough to destroy the whole village. Yotsuya tells her that something hidden must be waiting, and part of their task is to prevent Jiz P's execution. On their way, a boy holding a stick points it at them, demanding to know who they are. He instantly recognizes the heroes and Jiz P, his childhood best friend. She runs to him and asks why he hasn't spoken to her, explaining she left only to tell her father about her mother's illness. He doesn't answer until he takes them home. Inside, they find a lock of her mother's hair on the table. Jiz P realizes her mother is dead. She embraces her brother Vrook, who still hasn't spoken since their mother died. According to Vrook's friend, the elder forced Vrook to work outside the village as punishment. Yotsuya leaves to investigate the village, and Glin goes with him. On the way, she teases him about why villagers cling to someone who isn't even pretty. Yotsuya explains that in a place like this, people cling to anything that keeps them moving forward because life here feels frozen in time. She tells him she knows he left because he couldn't handle watching Jiz P suffer. He admits he's mostly angry because they arrived too late to save her mother with his healing magic. Glin respects him more after hearing that. A girl appears with 2 attendants behind her. She demands to know why they entered her village. She acts welcoming but also arrogant. She says the village has no need for heroes and introduces herself as Iris Darayo, granddaughter of Elder Kooks Darayo. Back at Lannon's house, Jiz P holds Vrook while he cries. When he learns that Dan disappeared, he explains that the elder uses the Journey of Hope to get rid of anyone who opposes him. The elder invites the heroes to his home. He pretends to welcome them, claiming the village is peaceful and needs no help. He tries various excuses to push them out. Yotsuya argues that monsters attack the village, but the elder demands to know who told him that. Yotsuya can't expose Jiz P yet, but Iris cuts in and reveals it was Jiz P. The elder fakes sympathy for her situation, pretending he didn't know her mother was ill and saying he's happy her father returned. He tries to convince them he has secret weapons capable of defeating monsters, and he leads them to see them. Instead, he locks them inside the cellar and reveals his true intentions. He thanks them for bringing him the girl who disobeyed him and says he'll let them rot rather than kill them. Back in the village, the people feed their guests frog eggs. The mother apologizes, saying the villagers reject her family and that Vrook was forced to work outside the village as punishment. The elder and his guards suddenly arrive. Vrook asks if he's here to take Jiz P, but the elder assures them he'll spare her thanks to the hero's request. He lies, pretending the heroes are at his palace enjoying food. His act catches the team's attention since all they were served were frog eggs after everything they endured. He invites them to his palace, pretending to honor them, and once he reaches a bridge over a swamp, he cuts the ropes. The heroes fall, as he tells them the swamp has no end and they'll die just like their friends locked in his cellar. He claims he didn't want this, but they are more dangerous to him than the monsters. The king believes he has gotten rid of the heroes, but Shindo destroys the bridge trap with wind magic, sacrificing some experience points to save Yotsuya and the others trapped in the palace basement. Meanwhile, Vrook cannot protect Jizp from the guards. As they drag her away, he declares that if they chase him too, he will leave the village and expose everything they've done. When the heroes return, they escort the king in handcuffs back to his palace. The villagers are already gathered, alarmed by the roar of a monster breaking the quiet of the night. The king lies again, claiming the heroes tried to steal Zagroth and insists he only arrested them to protect the village. Brook rushes toward the guards, holding Jizp, but is beaten down. His mother throws herself in front of him, reminding one of the guards that he is a father too. The crowd moves to the palace gate, and Brook exposes the elder's cruelty, how he sends people on the so-called journey of hope simply because they oppose him. The king keeps lying and orders the guards to arrest Rook and his mother, claiming they are the troublemakers. His lies are drowned out by another monster roar shaking the village. Rook tells his mom and Jizp to go home while he tries to help the heroes. But on his way, the ground quakes. Not an earthquake this time, but a monster entering the village. Tori sees guards trying to seize Rook's mother. Thinking of his own mother, he snaps. He attacks the guard, strikes the elder, and drags him to the palace tied up, threatening him if he harms Glynn or Shindo. Inside, they find Iris, the elder's granddaughter, sitting on the throne. She angrily declares she threw the palace key into an old well whose bottom collapsed years ago. Before the confrontation can escalate, Shindo and Glynn smash through the wooden ceiling beneath them and appear in the hall. They realize the solid stone walls meant they were in an underground room right under the palace floor, so they broke through to rejoin the team. Yotsuya examines the monsters outside and notices that their levels are far beyond what the heroes can face. Even worse, he sees ogres climbing dragons to reach the village. The group debates whether the village exists to protect its land or its people, but either way, retreat through the secret passage seems impossible as monsters are already coming through it. Brook reaches them and begs them to save the villagers. Deciding there is no other choice, they consider the elder's earlier mention of the dried up well behind the palace. Its bottom collapsed long ago, and no one knows how deep it goes. Hakozaki volunteers to jump first. Her armor is the strongest among them, and if she dies, they will at least know the path. Tori sets off to gather the villagers, only to find a dragon spraying a corrosive liquid that turns everything it touches to ash. Many villagers are already dead. Vrook reaches his ruined home and breaks down, but sees Jizp and Lannon alive. Jizp tells him their mother died protecting them. Vrook pushes aside his grief and helps them escape. Hakozaki jumps into the well and lands safely in a large cave. She calls up to the others, and they quickly build a rope ladder so the villagers can climb down. One by one, they descend to safety. The king and his granddaughter eventually follow, and the elder apologizes to Hakozaki for everything. She tells him that if he truly means it, he must help everyone coming down the ladder. Monsters reach the well opening. Hurry is about to fight, but Tokitari yanks him inside just in time. Yotsuya jumps in after them as the monsters flood the ruined village above. They escape into the underground cave system, but the mission isn't over. They now have to find shelter for the surviving villagers. The journey is long, and Iris grows tired. Tori, shifting from annoying to gentle as he often does, offers to carry her. Iris happily climbs on his back, and Tokitari teases him that after all his failed attempts to impress girls, at least one finally worked. While walking, they find a river with a man-made path beside it. Proof someone has crossed here recently, but the guide who originally pointed them toward the village had said there were no settlements here. That means the area might be full of monsters, so Yotsuya and Glynn go ahead to scout while the others guard the villagers. They discover a settlement of conical tents. Yotsuya considers attacking from a distance, but Glynn simply reminds him that people who fear mountains end up spending their whole lives hiding in holes. They enter the tents and find them empty, thinking they may use them as a temporary base, until a noise behind them makes them turn and prepare for a fight. Back at camp, Jizp explains that the man she called her father was not her real one. Hey, he adopted her long ago, and she accepted him fully as a parent. As she speaks, glowing eyes appear between the trees, monsters waiting for the perfect moment to attack. Glynn and Yotsuya turn around and find a group of people carrying spears and improvised weapons. They ask if the two of them are really the heroes. Meanwhile, on the other side, Tori notices a falling leaf and looks up to see a group of ogres ambushing them. Tokitati tries to shoot them with her bow but misses. Each hero draws their weapon and tells her to take the children and run. Hakozaki steps forward as a shield, and Shindo attacks behind her. After killing a few ogres, Shindo gains enough experience to be promoted to a sword-wielding raider warrior like Hakozaki, and she rushes in to finish the rest. While Tokitati is fleeing with the children and the king, an ogre appears in front of her. She tries to fight it with her wand but is too weak. At the last second, Glynn appears and kills the ogre, and Yotsuya arrives with Dan and Vrook after finishing the fight with Shindo. Tokitati has run far from them in panic. Vrook hunts his brother Dan after finally seeing him again. Everyone rests after the exhausting day. When the heroes learn that all the people who were sent on the journey of hope ended up living here, King Kuxdarayo pretends to be relieved they are safe, but the people of the settlement treat him him with contempt. They ignore him, belittle him, and even mock him when he asks for food. Iris, his granddaughter, grows angry watching her grandfather be humiliated, but even he now understands that outside his palace, he is nothing but an old man. Dan tells Jizp about her mother's death, but he does not let her finish her story. He explains why he never returned to the village. When he passed by this settlement and found they had no food, he stayed to hunt for them, as he was the best hunter in the village. Everyone assumes their mission is complete, but Yotsuya doesn't believe it. After seeing monsters from different species cooperating to attack the village, he is convinced someone is guiding them to wipe out humans. And if the village fell, this settlement may be next. Dan suggests heading toward New Aden. Glenn asks what Aden is, and he explains that it's an ancient legend, a place of eternal peace and safety. The original Journey of Hope was never meant to exile troublemakers. It was meant to send the strongest young men to search for this place. Their conversation is interrupted by King Kooks, who claims there is a secret second part of the legend known only to village elders. According to it, only those who choose to die willingly will be guided to New Aden. Dan is furious when he realizes the king has been hiding this truth for years, letting people sacrifice their families and loyalty for nothing. Shindo asks if the failure to find Aden means it doesn't exist. Before anyone answers, Jizp remembers something her real parents once told her, that behind the forest lies a peaceful land where people live. They said it could be found if the heroes helped them. Dan explains he tried to reach it, but an ogre settlement stood in the way. Going around the forest is too far, so he risked passing through it. Yotsuya sees an opportunity. With all the ogres in one place, a surprise attack might work. They continue through the forest to save time. Their group includes elderly villagers, their food is running low, and they don't know how difficult the ogre settlement will be. When the elders become too tired, they camp. Yotsuya, Shindo, and Tori go with Dan to eliminate nearby ghouls, while the others guard the villagers. Yotsuya uses creature magic to mask his presence until the awake ghouls are finished. Then, they move toward the nests to eliminate the sleeping ones, but they find the nests empty. Suddenly, they realize they've walked into an ambush. The guards were only bait. While guarding the villagers, Glenn talks with Hakozaki about their previous missions. Hakozaki recalls Glenn mentioning that corpses unsettle her. She asks whether Glenn has ever seen a real corpse. Glenn says she has. Her father was an army officer before being discharged with PTSD. When she was young, he showed her graphic photos of battles. When she later told him she liked girls and would never give him grandchildren, he pointed a gun at her, and she ran away. Iris wakes up frightened because she can't find her grandfather. Glenn searches for him and finds him dead, stabbed in a way that clearly shows a human attacker. She wakes the elders and asks them if they killed him out of revenge. But Jaka, the cook, responds that after losing their homes and families, they had no strength left for anything, let alone killing the elder. After Yotsuya's group finishes the ambush and returns, they bring the villagers back to the settlement to rest and plan their next move. They also try to find who killed King Kooks. Glenn observes that the only person with access to a sharp object is the cook, Jaka. Dan tries to defend him, saying anyone could have taken his knife, but Glenn points out that Jaka accidentally confessed when he reacted to learning the king had been stabbed, even though she had not yet revealed how the king died. With no other suspects, they restrain him and place him alone in a tent. Later, Tori enters the tent to check on him, only to find Jaka dead. Standing beside the body is the little girl holding a knife. Before Tori can react, he sees the same parasitic worm that infected Jizp's father emerging from the child's head. The parasite has killed her. The parasite inside Jizp's head controls the child's body and attacks Tori. Everyone expects Yotsuya to step forward and kill her, but they are shocked when Tori does it himself. He kills the little girl he had played with and carried on his back, unable to let the parasite take her further. At her funeral, everyone is heartbroken. They begin to notice that all the normal people feel sick and drained, the same symptoms they saw in Javan. This makes them suspect that the sorcerer Raji, who escaped, may have come here and is using life absorption magic again. Shindo tries to ease Tori's guilt. She tells him that everyone is feeling this weakness, even Yotsuya, who only acts calm to stay focused. She reminds Tori of his brother and that he must finish the mission so they can all return safely to the real world. She promises that after they return, they will all go to the beach together. They try to get Jizp to remember the location of Aden that her parents once told her about. She says it is east of the forest, a place Dan has never visited. Yotsuya is reluctant to head in blindly, especially if Raji may be nearby using life-draining magic and summoning dragons. Before they can decide, a group of ogres and kobolds attack. Dan and Hakozaki lead the villagers away while the others fight. They manage to kill the ogres, but the high-level kobold nearly kills Yotsuya. Everyone runs, but Lanan falls from a tree and hits his head. Tokitari reaches him and tries to drag him away while Hakozaki shields them. They defeat the kobold, but then a troll appears, grabs Shindo and Hakozaki and escapes. Tori charges after it and Yotsuya can't stop him. Meanwhile, Kantil, who had been lost after the Javan mission washes ashore somewhere else and is saved by Batina-sama, the witch who once rode the floating cat and helped the heroes before. Yotsuya wonders if Kantil's arrival means Raji was killed by Batina-sama. He asks if dragon sorcerers and witches are enemies. Kantil explains that the Order is trying to resurrect dragons that would wipe out humans if successful. He had come here after becoming Batina-sama's apprentice because she sensed a dragon sorcerer nearby. A meteorite fell 4 months ago, carrying powerful magic that strengthened monsters. Kantil saw a fragment of it near the ruined village of Zagroth, and afterward found another nearby village where everyone was dead. He knows blood rituals require absorbing huge amounts of life, and those souls become part of a dragon. He thought he was too late to stop the ritual, but he now senses that it is still incomplete. That means not enough blood was gathered. Kantil produces a Yog Mibel seed, a plant that absorbs magical energy. If planted in an area, it can seal its magic. Yotsuya worries it may weaken their own magic, but they haven't relied much on magic anyway, so he agrees to plant it and uses creature magic to speed its growth. Yotsuya hears Kantile mention a duke, a warlock who once tried to start a war to gather blood. Batina-sama defeated him by summoning a falcon that stole the dragon's food, but now another sorcerer is active here. If the blood in the ruined village wasn't enough, and the legend of Aiden is connected to this place, then Aiden is likely real. Jizp, Rook, and the injured Leynon sit together. Jizp fears being alone if her brother dies, but Rook comforts her and says Leynon's injury is mild. After planting the Yod Mibel seed, Yotsuya, Turi, and Tokitati track the troll. Chaos from the ogre attacks has torn a path through the forest, making it easy to follow. They find the troll outside the forest. Tori rushes in and dies again, and Tokitati shoots it in one eye. Yotsuya urges her to shoot the other, but she misses repeatedly until the troll kills her. As it turns toward Yotsuya, Tori revives, leaps onto its back, slices open its stomach, and pulls the two girls out. Yotsuya believes Aiden must be above the nearby waterfall. He plants another Yog Mibel seed and grows it upward so they can climb, but they find nothing at the top. Then, Yotsuya remembers the village elder's words, those who reach Aiden must be willing to choose death. He realizes Aiden isn't above the waterfall, it is below it. The others try to stop him, knowing he will drown if he dies in the water, but he tells them to handle the rest and jumps. The depth is terrifying, and he almost gives up when the current suddenly shifts and pulls him upward into a huge underwater cavity. Inside is a hidden city filled with houses and children. Yotsuya asks an old man how many people live here, and he answers that today they became 321 because a baby was born. Yotsuya asks for the name of the place, but the man explains that a village without outside contact needs no name. When Yotsuya hears another elder say he came from Zagroth, he realizes this must be the Aiden of legend. Back in the settlement, Lanan wakes from his injury and starts speaking again, but claims he has no older sister. He clings to Vrook, who is confused by his behavior. Glynn enters the tent where they rest and suddenly realizes the truth. Jizp is not a child at all. She is the dragon sorceress who has been disguising herself as a child from the beginning. On the walls of an ancient temple, old drawings show how magicians once tried to summon and control dragons, which were many in number, until a heavenly curse reduced them to 5. One of those dragons was sealed in the stars, asleep, and it was that sleeping dragon that sent the meteor whose fragments now threaten to end the world. Glynn explains why she suspected Jizp of being the dragon sorceress. He accuses her of planting the parasite inside the child Iris, because Iris was healthy before being alone with her. She points out how Jizp always arrived first, at every location. She reached the village before the heroes and cast illusions on the villagers to make them believe she belonged there. Her magic didn't work on Lanan because his trauma made his memories unstable, and Dan also didn't recognize her until she implanted an illusion. As for the king's murder, Glynn believes she influenced the old men into doing it since they hated him already. Hot. Glynn had kept these suspicions to herself until she was certain. Now that she knows the truth, she draws her spear to avenge Iris and everyone else who died because of the sorceress. The true Jizp reveals herself and tells Glynn she's perceptive. Glynn replies that a lifetime of bad experiences made her suspicious. Jizp admits she has always struggled with memory manipulation and that she coordinated everything with King Kooks di Rayo. She flees and summons a flying beast like the one Iris saw. She rides it in search of a place to perform the blood ritual. She senses human lives nearby, but she wants to use the meteor fragment to absorb them all at once. The problem is that there are no cities here, so the number of available souls isn't enough. When she went near the waterfall, she only found Mr. Payne, whom she pretended was her father. He doubted her story, so she killed him with a worm and continued searching until the heroes arrived. Then she let them unknowingly find Aiden for her. When Glynn asks why she destroyed Zagroth, Jizp explains she needed souls to prepare for the ritual. Rook demands to know what happened to his mother. Jizp answers coldly that she didn't kill her. She simply didn't save her and let her die. Furious, Rook tries to attack her and Kantil protects him with his sword. Jizp escapes, satisfied that Yotsuya has already done the hard work by locating the hidden Aiden village. Yotsuya wonders how monsters keep finding them with such accuracy. Before he can think further, Jizp appears above them riding a flying monster. Kantile and Glynn recognize recognize her fully as a dragon-summoning sorceress. She announces that she orchestrated everything and uses the meteorite's power to summon all monsters toward her. A massive army answers her call: ogres, trolls, acid-spewing beasts, and a powerful monster leader. These monsters aren't coming to fight the heroes, they're coming to kill the villagers so she can use their blood in her ritual. Boosted by the meteorite, the monsters become even stronger. Jizp declares that she will use the meteor's power to summon the great dragon sooner. Realizing they cannot win in a direct fight, Yotsuya asks Kantel where the magic circle is located so he can destroy it. Kantel scans the field and realizes something. The stone monsters haven't moved since the start. Before he can explain more, Jizp hits him with a projectile. With his last breath, he tells Yotsuya that the magic circle is carved on the backs of the stone monsters. The heroes shift their focus, but when Jizp notices it, she sends the rest of her monsters to protect the stones. Yotsuya knows he has to target the source and charges directly at her. He draws the rock's energy into himself, uses creature magic to disrupt it, and grabs a branch from the Yagmibel seed to cancel her spells. She blocks his attacks with her aura, but Yotsuya manages to scratch her slightly. She mocks him for such a small wound, but this is exactly what he needed. He presses closer and forces a Yagmibel seed into her wound, then uses creature magic to make it grow inside her veins. The plant cancels her magic and expands inside her, slowly killing her. Slowly. With her magic weakened, Kantil orders the others to erase the spells from the stone monsters. They eliminate most of the remaining monsters, and Tori kills the largest one in revenge for Iris. The meteorite's power becomes unstable, overflowing with mana that normal humans can't withstand. Yotsuya collapses. When he wakes, Jizp is still alive, trapped inside the tree that grew from the seed. They ask him what to do, and he says the answer is obvious. She must be killed. Hakozaki begs him not to kill again, and Glenn tells him to leave the matter to this world's people instead of carrying all killing himself. Vrook asks whether Jizp manipulated not just his memories, but his feelings as well. Instead of answering, the sorceress kills herself with her own magic and burns away, declaring that she only needs the love of her dragon god. Batina-sama appears, shatters the meteorite, and orders Kantil to collect the fragments so the dragon cannot revive again. The meteor's collapse creates a hole in the mountain above the hidden Aden city. The villagers take refuge there, and the people of Aden welcome them warmly as if they were long-lost relatives. Yotsuya tells them to name the town Zagra. The mission is completed. The Game Master appears and tells Glenn she may ask one question. She asks how the dragon will appear in the human world. He answers that the gap between the worlds is expanding, and once the dragon can fit through it, it will enter their world. The heroes return home. After school, Yotsuya prepares to leave when Tori approaches and invites him somewhere. But Yotsuya responds coldly that he has work to do. The others return to their everyday lives, talking about how Yotsuya pretends he has changed to honor his promise to Shindo, even though he still struggles to show it. The victory is not the end. The widening gap signals the return of the great dragon.